Two. Welcome to Leading Leaders Podcast. Today we are doing something completely unique. We've never done this in the studio before. I actually have a guest in studio with me today, and we are going to dive into this Storypower coaching process that I use to help people take the stories from their life and make them relevant to their business. Now, I have coaching clients who are politicians, who are professional speakers, who are pastors, who are regular business people. Some own their own business, some work for somebody else. Some are in sales, some are in management, some are in leadership. And in each one of those categories, I know that the truth is the stories that you tell, they affect the way you think, they affect the way you communicate, and they affect the way people think about you. So we're going to dive right in here. I want you to help me welcome my guest, Trenton Mooney. Trenton, thanks for coming back.
Right.
I know we've had some other conversations, but you're a guinea pig in this process. So I want to welcome you. I want to thank you for being brave. I hear today you're doing the, is it Hunks of Hood County? Is that what it's called?
Yep, Handsome Hunks of Hood County.
Handsome Hunks of Hood County. I would not qualify for that, so I'm glad you're there to cover that spot. But we appreciate you being there, and I appreciate you being here today. So here's what we're going to do. I've got a timer.
Okay.
And I'm going to start this timer for 2 minutes, and then I'm going to turn it over or hide it from you so that you can't see it, because here's part of the process. Can you tell a story that drives people into you, into trusting you, into building business with you in 2 minutes or less, even if that story has nothing to do with business? So here's what we're going to do. You're going to tell whatever story you want to, and I'm going to take the call to action that you give me and attach the two together and make it relevant and powerful. And I'm going to give that story back to you so you can use it anytime you want to. All right? So tell me what your most profitable call to action is. Now, this may be from relationship standpoints. This may be from a business standpoint. This may be a matter of saying, here's what I have to do for my job. This is how I get paid. This is how I pay my bills. And what I need is people to sign up for this, buy this, go here, believe in this, buy the book, join the website, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. So what's your most profitable call to action?
I'm a seniors real estate specialist.
Okay,
And I help the seniors transition through life. And
okay, so when you say seniors, do you mean 50 and above, 60 and above, 70 and above?
It's preparing people from their 50s all the way to the end of life.
Okay.
You know, not necessarily, you get not 55 plus, but just people that need to transition and be prepared for their life, because a lot of people get in their homes and
they don't want to get out?
And they're stuck, yeah.
Okay. So do you help them with stuff like reverse mortgages or finding less expensive properties so they can live longer on the equity of their other property, or leaving it in a legacy like a trust or something like that? Tell me how you serve them in that way.
Yeah, that's mainly what I want to do, is like help them leave a legacy for their kids and their family, because they worked all these years to have a house that's paid for, then to lose it at the end of their life.
Right.
So, but at the same time, I want them to have the
comfortable living space too.
Yeah, comfortable living at the end of life and what makes sense for them. And so, my wife is an occupational therapist assistant, and she has a home modification certificate around universal design, aging in place, and all this stuff. But in doing that, we've also surrounded ourselves with a network of other business people that are in the same field that we were in, that have the same passion, the same culture and heart around these people that we do.
So is your primary role in helping your customer to move them into like a living facility, or move them into an assisted living, or is it to help them downsize from what they've been in into something more affordable or more manageable?
I mean, all those.
Okay.
What you mentioned, because some people can't afford to go in assisted living facilities or independent living facilities, and they don't know what they're really stepping into.
Or what the options are.
Yeah, what the options are in their communities. So, and that's where we come in. My wife works at them, the independent, our assisted living facilities, rehab centers, and stuff like that. And she also goes into homes of these peoples too to help them. But I guess, a lot of people just want to stay in their house.
Right.
They want to be at home. And so we have a way to make that happen.
Financially speaking.
Financially.
Right.
You have the Medicare to get home care and even private pay to be able to pay a caregiver to come in
Right.
on the side, whether it's just helping with your daily activities around the house.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And so you're not just an average real estate person looking for the biggest house to flip the sale and get the commission and walk on to the next thing.
No, it's not about that.
It's not your calling.
It's not my calling.
Okay.
I've just seen so many generations, when it comes down to selling their parents' house or their whoever place, it's like, what'd you make off of it? And it's literally nothing.
Right.
I'm like, so, but my goal in life is to just help people, live out their legacy and to keep,
Okay. Very good. All right. So I'm going to summarize that to say, and tell me if this is fair.
Okay.
Because what I like to do with a 2-minute story is have like 15 seconds of that is a call to action.
Okay.
So if I were to say something like, hey, reach out to me. My name's Trenton Mooney. I help people transition in their later years, whether that's to age in place, to prepare their home for their later days, financially and physically, or to downsize and find something that's more manageable and affordable to keep their legacy intact.
Mm-hmm.
Is that fair?
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right on.
All right, so let's set all that aside for a minute and just give me a story, any story from your life. A 5-year-old learning to ride a bicycle, first time you got in a fist fight, first time you got a popsicle stuck in your hair, but whatever that story is. And I'm literally just making stuff up because I don't know if any of those are even real stories in your life, but any one of those that fits you. And then what we're going to do is we're going to look at that story. First, I'll just retell it to you and tie it together with the call to action. And then we're going to kind of dissect that story a little bit and look at the things that if we changed a phrase or two, how much better it would connect with the audience that you serve. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. All right, so I'm going to start the timer when you start talking. And at the end of 2 minutes, I'll tell you your time is up.
Any life experience.
Whatever you want to talk about.
Okay. All right.
All right?
I guess I'm ready.
When you start talking, I'll start timing.
All right. So, 8 years ago, I guess the biggest move that I ever made in my life, the biggest decision I ever made in my life was to go to church, go down to the church and find somebody to talk to, a pastor to talk to. And what I was getting at, I felt like God was calling me to go one way or the other. So I went down to the church and went and met with our lead pastor at the church and talked to him. And he started pouring life into me and talking to me. And we just worked through a few things. And then after the third time, I just told him, I said, hey, I need a mentor. And not knowing exactly what I was asking for, I was just living out my life. A couple of weeks later, the pastor calls me up and says, hey, I got this guy that walked in my office 2 weeks ago that is interested in discipling young men, and would I be interested in doing that? And so far, this has been the best decision that I've ever made with my life.
Wow.
As far as like just reaching out, finding leadership, knowing that I can't do life on my own, and that there was actually men out there that are willing to step up and be that for other men. So,
very good.
Is that 2 minutes?
No, that was 1 minute and 25 seconds.
Oh, it felt like 5.
All right, so I'm going to reset the timer here, and I'm going to take that story and make it relevant to your call to action.
Okay.
I realized that life wasn't coming together quite the way I wanted it to, and I went down to the church. I found the pastor, and I said, man, I just need some help. I don't get it. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I just don't ain't working right. I feel like God's saying I need to go one way or the other. I just need to make a decision. And it's a tough decision. And, my wife's involved in this. I got kids involved in this. I got a life that I've got to maintain. I've got to do the right thing, and I just need some help. And so Pastor and I sat down. We had a couple of sessions together, and then basically, I don't have time for this. Was kind of the ongoing part of that. But he said, I'll keep in mind. I'll keep you in prayer. And I went back to just doing life, still realizing it'd be nice if I had somebody who knew what was going on in this world that I'm still trying to figure out. And I get a call from this guy that had met my pastor. The pastor's like, hey, you two should connect because he loves to mentor young men, and you're a young man who's looking for a mentor, and that'd be a good partnership. And I realized really shortly into that relationship, he knew a whole lot about life that I haven't figured out yet. Whether it was about my faith or it was about being a good husband or being a good father, about just being a good citizen in the community, he's done things that I haven't done yet. He's been in a place where I've never been before. And as he poured into me, I began to see myself just grow and develop and figure out things that I was figuring out things he wasn't saying, but they were kind of dawning on me, new revelations. And I want to tell you, there are a lot of things about the world of real estate that change on a regular basis. New laws, new tax ideas, new mortgage ideas, things like a reverse mortgage. Not everybody knows what that is. Some people just get scammed with them. But if you had a mentor who could walk you through the process of deciding, do I keep the 20-acre ranch and all the stuff that I have to maintain there and pay for the help, or do I put that into a trust and then live off some of the income? Do I sell it and move into something smaller? Are my kids even around to take care of me? These are tough questions. These are really tough questions. And while you're able-minded to make those decisions and have the opportunity to surround yourself with people, I'd love to be the person who kind of mentors you through that process. Call me. I'm Trenton Mooney. I do senior real estate, and I can help you age in place or downsize and make it more affordable. Okay, so that was a little over 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 36 seconds. Obviously, the part that I embellished on was the story. Okay, so let's talk about things that could be in the story, and not talking about manipulating the story, not talking about making the story untrue, but let's think about some of the things that are important both in the story and in the offering of your business. Okay, so you talked about mentorship in the story. The story talks about a guide, someone who's kind of been there, done that, knows the way around. I try to pull some things in. I'm not a real estate agent. I'm not a specialist in senior sales. All of those things, I have to make them up, right? Because I don't even know the lingo. But how many of the things would you say are parallels between the things that you learn from your mentor and the things that only a specialist in your field would know? And I don't mean exactly the same, but like there are probably some secrets you learn from him that you're like, man, I wish I'd known that 10 years before. That your clients look to you and they're like, wow, I wish I'd known that 10 years before.
No, every day in life, I'm just like, I walk into different scenarios and different homes with seniors, and listening to the way you was saying it, the story just then, it kind of resonated with me on the steps that I've taken as far as my financial freedom with real estate, and then also how I was able to help other people with real estate. And I can think of one scenario where I had walked into a house, and it was like literally that the guy was living off the grid. He was at the end of life, living off the grid. He was pretty much, he couldn't have had water, like even the utilities probably weren't even on in the house. Wow. It was.
Was that by choice or because of his financial position?
Possibly his financial decision, or it was by choice, or he just thought that maybe he was doing life alone at the end of life, and essentially they're like in their own prison nearly.
Right.
There was cases of beanie weenies and water and candles all through the house, and I was like, you go through the house and you're like trying to put yourself in this guy's shoes of what he was going through, and literally there was like a payphone, like where he made his last call to say, hey, I need help. Wow. Yeah. And so
when you see a situation like that, how does it make you feel as a young, able-bodied person looking at life and you're thinking, I don't want to be there?
Man, I really don't, because I'm like, it's like I can leave a scenario like that and I go right back into my household. I'm like, all right, let's get this together. Let's clean this up, because I don't want my family to think that that's the way we're going to end our life.
Right.
I mean, I couldn't imagine, you know, going through what that guy had gone through at the end of life, and so.
Now, I'm assuming you've walked as well into those places where you walk into the home and, you know, it's very nicely appointed and beautiful artwork on the walls and, you know, all the finest furniture and nice cars in the driveway and everything's paid off and there's money in the bank and they're looking at you going, you know, we're just not sure, you know, we don't have kids, we don't have anybody to leave it to, so what do we do with it? How do you handle a situation like that?
Man, I would probably lead them towards like somebody that's in the state side, the where they can help them put their finances in the right order, and just to make sure, you know, not that we're trying to get out of paying taxes, but the inheritance taxes and
Right.
there's loopholes around everything, and how you get around them, you know, it could make your family successful or not.
Right.
At the end of, you know.
Well, and I think there are probably people that, you know, they've lived their life, they've worked their tail off, they've invested everything, they've done good, and you know, I know a lady, for an example, she's been running the same ministry for 40 years. She was a successful business person before that, but she's been running this tiny little ministry for 40 years. And her and her husband live well, everything's paid for, they're all good to go, but they have no kids. So there's nobody to leave the inheritance to if there was an inheritance. I mean, whether they're sitting on piles of money or no money, I don't know, but if there were, they have no kids to hand it off to. So the question then is, how do you manage that? Well, some people would say, liquidate the estate or leave the estate in a trust and allow whatever the revenue from that is to go into the ministry or to move there. So in your business world, in those relationships, how often have you helped somebody move to another level that you become the mentor or the guide in their life? And how many diverse scenarios would you see in that? And I'm getting to this for a particular reason. There's a process in storytelling that I call the avatar window. And the avatar window is a place where you look out the window, so to speak, and you look at the different people that you might help in different ways. And you might say something like, listen, I want to help you in the next phase of your real estate purchases or your real estate decisions. Whether you're the guy living like a hermit all by himself who has no family to take care of him, has no assisted care, doesn't have the budget to move to a home, surrounds himself with, you know, cans of survival food and bottled water and candles. Or you're the couple that are in their late 80s, no kids to pass anything down to, and you're just trying to figure out, you know, what do I do with a 20-acre ranch and 400 head of cattle, and, you know, what do I do with all this stuff when there's nobody to hand it to? Whichever end of that spectrum you're on, I can help you with your business. I can help you with your real estate. I can help you with that transition. Does that make sense? And I think probably if those are two ends of the spectrum, there are probably 3 or 4 other places along that spectrum. You know, I'm living alone on beans and weenies to I got it all made and I don't know what to do with it all. Somewhere in the middle there is probably the average American and the average person that you help, where they're like, okay, well, had a stroke, need memory care, that's $7,000 to $10,000 a month. I don't have $95,000 laying around or $120,000 laying around to just go into a home. So what are my other options? How do I get care in my home? How do I get care for my husband who's in that exact situation? And as we're all aging and dealing with Alzheimer's and dementia and strokes and heart attacks and medical issues, all of those things become everybody's challenge at some point. So I guess the next question would be, as you're looking at that avatar window of the various people on that spectrum, who's your next level of customer? Because I'm guessing it's not always mom at 77 after a series of strokes. It may be her daughter who's in her 50s going, okay, mom can't do this anymore and I can't do this because I'm not old enough to retire and I'm still working 50 hours a week. And so how do I make that? So how would you, if you were talking to the daughter or the granddaughter, how would you make that presentation?
So there's a series of questions you can present to your doctor.
Okay.
And where you can ask the right questions, where you can get some kind of hospice care.
Okay.
Inside your home, and that way your Medicare or whatever is paying for it, and you're not actually having to come out of pocket.
Now, is this part of the service that you provide? even if it's just a referral to
It-
connect them to the right people to do that?
You know, you got to be the resource for people.
Okay.
And then being the resource and, you know, adding value to their life and just planting seeds is what I call it. You know, we're just going through life. We're just planting seeds. We're either planting seeds or we're not planting seeds every day. And then down the road, it'll come to a harvest for us.
Right.
Or for them. So, and if we're that resource, they're always, you know, it doesn't matter if it's a handyman, electrician, a plumber, or, and that's, you know.
A physical therapist to help
physical-
reroute the handicap ramp.
Yeah, a physical therapist, you know, what advice they could need for widening door frames or,
Right.
you know, putting handrails in the bathroom or, you know, or just to having another set of eyes that come in their house that is looking through for any hazards or, you know, just thinking differently than what they're thinking.
Okay, so when you go into that process, into a relationship, let's just throw out a scenario. Say a person in their 50s approaches you and says, you know, mom's going to be bedridden. She's going to have to be, you know, either in a home or stay at home. Somebody's going to have to come take care of her. We don't know if we should sell the house or keep the house, if we should do a reverse mortgage on the house to be able to pay for this care, or, you know, do we qualify for hospice? At what point does Trenton step in and go, okay, let me be a resource for you, let me be a guide for you, let me be a consultant for you, or, hey, my job is to sell houses, and my bills don't get paid if I don't sell houses. I mean, where do you draw the line on that, I guess would be the first question. And the second question would be, if selling the real estate or buying the real estate is really kind of the last thing on the list of options, are you more than a real estate agent?
Yeah, I feel like real estate is my ministry in a way.
Okay.
Because, you know, sometimes we may be able to get in the home and say a certain thing that may actually help ease their mind.
Right.
You know, and I've been called before, you know. I was on one side of town and the daughter was with her dad on the other side of town and says, Trenton, can you come over? My dad's having an attack and he don't want to call the hospital. He don't want to call the ambulance. I said, I'll be there in 10 minutes. So it's I don't know. It's just.
So it's more about relationships and resources than it is about real estate.
It is. You know, it would be nice to make bukus of money, but maybe that comes around with it. I don't know. I don't know exactly what God has planned for me, but I do know that if we're always doing the right thing, the right thing's always going to come back to us, and we may not be ever expecting the blessing down the road or the harvest down the road.
I've heard 3 different people this year, since, what are we, 17 days in, I've heard 3 different people say in 2024, sow what you intend to reap.
Right.
Sow what you intend to reap. So ask yourself the question, what is it I want out of life? What is it I want out of relationships? What is it that I want to gain in my business? Sow that. You want favor? Sow favor. You want resources? Sow resources. You want resourcefulness? Sow resourcefulness. That's a pretty powerful statement. So let's take another stab at your story, and I'm going to start a timer again. And if you had your phone out, I'd tell you you're welcome to record this. If you have it handy, you're welcome to, if you've got a voice recorder. But we are recording and it's live streaming, so the entire world will be able to see it. About 8 years ago, I realized that I didn't have it all figured out. I thought I did, but I really needed some help. I went to my local church, talked to the senior pastor. He spent some time with me and said, you know, what's going on in your world? And I told him. He gave me some advice. After about 3 sessions, though, we realized this is a very time-consuming process. I need a mentor. I need somebody who can speak into my life on a regular basis, who has some insights and some experience, who can listen to where I am and give me some advice for where I need to go. Well, a couple weeks later, a guy shows up, goes to my senior pastor and says, hey, I'm one of those guys. I've been around the block a few times. I got some advice. I got some ideas, and I'd love to have a couple of guys that I could pour those ideas into. Do you know anybody? Pastor said, just so happens I know a guy. And so the guy that he knew became me, and I became the mentee of a guy who's been around the block a few times, and he's got some advice, and he's resourceful. He's witty. He's smart. He's experienced. And the things that I didn't learn about being a dad or being a good husband or being a good employee or a good business owner, he's been able to pour into me. He's been able to give me some advice. And I've done my homework and I've done my research, and there's some things that I know that not everybody knows. I mean, if you spent your years in oil and gas or in business management or something like that, you may know nothing about real estate, and that's okay. You may know nothing about how to get help for a senior who has to stay at home and can't afford to go into an assisted living center. But my passion is to be not just a real estate agent, but a resource for people who are making that transition. So whether you're in your 30s and you're the granddaughter or the grandson, you're in your 50s and you're the daughter or the son, or you're in your 70s and 80s and you're trying to figure out, do I keep the estate? Do I sell the estate? Do I pass it on to my kids? Do I leave it in a charity? Do I stay where I'm at until the end of my days and make myself comfortable? And what are the best ways to do that? Whichever one of those suits you. My name is Trenton Mooney. I'm a resource for seniors in real estate. How do you feel about that? That was 2 minutes and 3 seconds.
I don't know if I can.
Does it resonate with you? Does it
Yeah.
feel like you kind of covered all the gamut? The story fits to kind of lead people into saying, I understand better now because somebody stepped into my life and answered some questions that I didn't have.
Yeah. And even like somebody like you, you know, you're not just discipling people, but you're helping people tell their story.
Mm-hmm.
And the more and more we tell our story, the more and more it comes out, I guess.
It does, and I'll tell you one of the biggest challenges that I have is when I start working with people. Some people have a story that they've lived vicariously. I was chatting with a client just the other day, and she started telling me a story, and then she got to the punchline, if you will, and she's like, "I was 4 months old." I said, "Hang on, I'm not trying to be mean, but." I have a lot of psychology books over here, and I study a lot about the human brain. Mm-hmm. I don't know anybody who remembers 4 months old.
Right.
Or 4 years is pretty common. 3 to 4 years old is kind of when people start their early childhood memories, but most people don't remember 4 months old. So is that a story that somebody told you several times, and is there a chance that you don't actually remember it, you just remember hearing it? She's like, well, actually, yeah, I mean, my grandma told me that story a lot. And I said, okay, let's start with the story that you remember living through. And here's why. If you go back and watch this video, you're going to see the moment that Trenton's heart was broken, thinking about being that old man, living alone, with cans of beans and weenies and bottled water and candles. Because nobody wants to be there. And your heart breaks for somebody like that, whether you're thinking of yourself or you're thinking of your parents or you're thinking of your grandparents and you're thinking, life shouldn't be like that. Nobody should be left all alone. I'm going to close with this story real quick. I was walking back from buying coffee over at Paradise the other day, walking around the square. It's been, a month or so ago. As I'm walking across the street, there was an old guy. He was kind of hobbling, and I was on the upper step where the ramp is. So I stepped down the step and then into the curb to let him make his way up the ramp because he looked like he was struggling a little bit to just keep going. And when I passed him, I just said, "Good morning." And I took a couple more steps, and then he called out to me. He's like, "Hey." I'm like, uh-oh. I turned around, and he said, "Thank you." I said, "You're welcome." He said, "You know how many times I walk around these streets and nobody ever says hi to me?" I'm like, okay, that's heartbreaking. That we can live in a world where we pass other humans by. He said, just the fact that you said hello to me. We stood in the street and talked about being veterans and talked about our time in the military and talked about, what the world is like today and what the world was like 50 years ago, almost half an hour. Mm-hmm. And I wonder when was the last time he actually had a conversation with somebody?
Yeah. When
was the last time he ran into somebody who cared enough to stop and say hi? Mm-hmm. Jack Canfield tells a story in his book, Success Principles, about a guy who committed suicide jumping off the Brooklyn Bridge. And when they went to clean out his apartment, because, that's worth a lot of money in that area of the world, they found a sticky note on the inside of the door, on the inside of the front door. It said, if somebody says hi to me, I won't jump today. Mm-hmm. But the sticky note had been there so long, the color of the sticky note was faded. There was dust around the edges of it, the backside of it. The door wasn't even the same color. How many days did somebody just say, "What's up?" And so he didn't jump. And he came home. This time, Nobody said hi. There's something about our story that isn't just about us. It's about the audience. It's about the people we care about. It's about how would your daughter feel when she's 45 with a house full of kids and thinking about her dad living alone, surrounded by beans and weenies.
Right.
Nobody wants to think like that. But unfortunately, there are a whole lot of people that live that out. I believe the movie was Gran Torino with Clint Eastwood that was kind of a scenario like that. And he just lost his purpose, gave up on his why. Well, those stories are every day. And every day you encounter those stories, and those stories become an opportunity to help somebody else, as well as to learn something that can make you a better person, but also something that gives you an opportunity to serve somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what Storypower is all about. It's about understanding what the power of those stories are, not just to sell, not just to connect, not just to speak from the stage, but to become a better person along the journey.
Yeah. I always have a story to tell.
We always have a story to tell. And we are out of time. We are actually a little bit over time, but
Okay.
it is all good. Trenton, love to see you back again. We'll carry on this conversation. I appreciate you coming in. Hey, thanks for watching the Leading Leaders podcast. I hope this has been a great investment in you to learn to tell better stories. There is nothing more powerful in your life than telling better stories better. The ones in your head, the ones in your heart, the ones that you speak to the people that you care about. Because nothing shapes you like the words that come out of your mouth, beside the words that bang around inside your head and inside your heart. So take the time to tell better stories better. Better stories to you, better stories to your customers, better stories to your friends. And you have the power to change the world. I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast, or Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day.